so many people are turned towards this fear approach of all the media and all the scare tactic that is supporting this poor real estate market and what's to come, and literally turn and look forward and understand this data. You're going to see opportunity. You're going to see that not as it opportunity, like it's time sensitive opportunity.
We have got a special treat for you here. This is William Smith at the William Smith Lecture Group, and we have Chad Hawker in the house. And Chad, thank you very much for coming to us. I know you're busy at Synergy One Lending. You know, something I'm going to talk about, I'm going to brag about you a little bit. You're number one in the nation with Synergy One Lending.
In volume,
Congratulations.
yes. Thank
Yeah,
you.
thank you very much for all the service you do for my clients and for my family. You've done a lot of financing for us here, especially recently when we had those great interest rates. So what we're talking about now is interest rates and recession and what we need to know about it with the dynamic real estate market that we have here on the Monterey Peninsula. And let's get started. I'm going to start with the first question. I get this question all the time. I'm sure every California realtor is getting the same question. And that is, I'm looking at my notes. Where are interest rates headed in the short term? What should I say when they ask me that?
You're right, the crystal ball, if we only had it. First of all, I want to thank you, William. You and I go back many years. You are the consummate professional. You inspire me in what you do and your commitment to your clients and your commitment to this industry as a whole. For how many years have you been in this business, William?
32. And thank you. Now, folks, you know why I invited Chad to my broadcast here. But thank you for
No, seriously. So, and the pleasure is all mine to have the opportunity to help you personally and so many wonderful clients we've had the opportunity to help. So, first of all, let's cut to the chase here. It's a scary time. It's a time where not only those of us in the industry, but people in the real estate market, buyers, sellers, are paralyzed. We're paralyzed by fear. We're paralyzed by the speed in which we've all had to observe change in rates, change in real estate. And it's really created this paralysis and this inability to feel like we're making an educated decision when all these data points and all the media is creating and instilling such fear and uncertainty, right? And in uncertain times, we all, rightfully so, have a difficult time making a decision. We don't feel like we should make a decision.
What is the right decision? That's
right.
that goes with that too.
Right. So we're all feeling it. And if you're feeling it, I think that's normal. And we always want to feel like we're feeling some sense of normalcy, like these are normal emotions. So what's driving this? And as you said, and we're going to get to the topic of rates, but I kind of want to move sequentially into understanding rates. And it's that big I, that big I word, inflation. We're hearing it over and over again. And I know you have some great graphs and great data that correlate inflation, interest rates, recession, how all of these things tie into one another. But that really is if you had to boil it down to one primary reason, inflation is what has caused rates to move up, tied to what the Fed is having to do in order to try to combat inflation. Now, we move based off of the data, the CPI and PPI reports, which measure the degree of inflation. Inflation is measured over a 12-month average. A lot of people don't realize this, that when you take the inflationary data, add up the last 12 months, you get a number, it's a constant average. So regardless of what may happen last month, the average is kind of upping this average. And so when we function after an average and not actual month-over-month data, it takes a while for it to recover. So analysts, I read a lot of I listen and read the opinions and the observations of a lot of economists and a lot of analysts. And they called it out early last week before the CPI and PPI report came out that they believe that we are nearing the end of the uncertainty of inflation, that we're going to start seeing the numbers slowly come down. Because if we can see the inflationary data start to come down, that upward pressure to now turn the tide, then we're going to start seeing some relief in interest rates. So this was prior to last Thursday. Thursday hit, the data came out, it was much better than most people forecasted. And in one day, rates fell almost 0.5% in one day. It's a powerful example of why rates are elevated because of the fear and the data of inflation. On Tuesday, more data came out, which yet again supported that inflation is starting to improve. Now, we're not completely out of the woods, but when you analyze the data and you see the average start to move, you're going to see some relief in interest rates like we saw last week and this week. So inflation. So inflation is also tied to recession, right? So no doubt, without question, every time inflation is high, it starts to move us into a point of recession. Things like unemployment. I saw the media reporting that no, there is no recession looming because unemployment is at an all-time low. How faulty is that? Because literally every time a recession starts, inflation is very low. So when you looked at the month-over-month data of unemployment, it went from 3.5 to 3.7. It's the first time we've seen unemployment start to move on the rise. So when you look at the data, when you look at inflation, recession, the movement of rates tied to mortgage-backed securities and the spreads, most of that data supports that we in Q1 of next year, Q2, might see rates drop back down, most likely to around 5%, 4.5% to 5%. That does a heck of a lot for the real estate market. It does a heck of a lot just for the mentality and the peace of mind of both buyers and sellers. Because imagine if you take away this fear and this uncertainty that we're approaching some housing bubble, that interest rates are going to climb to 10%. All those doom and gloom predictions are in fact not true. And housing is still a very good investment, and the market is stable. Rates are going to come down. Inflation's going to come down. Everything is going to change. Now, sellers can comfortably sell their properties. Buyers can feel comfortable about buying a property. And some might believe that if that's going to happen in Q1, Q2, doesn't that make it right now a very good time for a buyer? Because think about what buyers now have in their arsenal when they're writing offers for properties that are sitting. They have more say, right? I mean, I'm sure you're noticing that a lot of sellers are being more willing to maybe go into contract a little below list, or seeing them willing to provide very large credits to help buy down a buyer's rate. They're willing to negotiate more now than they may in Q1, Q2 of next year. And so we always want to know and try, if we only knew how to time the market, if all this data is in fact true, and this isn't media-driven data, this is data that now over the next 3 months, 2 months, it might be a great time to purchase real estate.
Well, Chad, I want to talk about a couple of the things that you hit on. Number one, in the last 6 recessions that we've had mortgage interest rates drop in every one of them. That goes all the way back to 1980. So inflation goes up, rates go up, recession brings rates back down. And in 2023, many experts are saying we will have a recession. Rates come down, and you take advantage of some of these market opportunities you just talked about, because I want to ask you another question about what we can do as far as getting those higher 30-year fixed rates looked at, maybe with some creative financing, some seller buy downs, if you can go into that a little bit more, maybe some of these option arms that we hear about. Some of these are coming back to light because for the last 5 years, when interest rates were really low, you got a 30-year fix. You didn't get any of these other programs. So can you touch on that a little bit? Seller buy downs and option arms.
Absolutely. Well, first I want to point out that, if you do trust the data and believe that rates will be coming down to, say, 5% next year, there might be a school of thought, well, I'll just wait until rates come down. But there is a flaw in that thinking, because the moment rates go down, real estate starts to pick up, becomes more of a seller's market. You may end up buying that same property for more than what you paid today. So be able to buy that property at a discount with a higher interest rate today. What can we do next year? We can refinance that rate. There's a cute little saying that everyone is saying: you're going to date the rate, you're going to marry the house, you'll divorce the rate next year, and then you're going to marry a much more attractive rate, right? And so if you do that, then, that is really the strategy now. But for the time being, what is the best approach for a loan and a rate that is a short-term relationship? And there's a lot of different ways. It depends on the client situation and the client's needs. If you can get into a higher rate with less cost, knowing you're going to divorce that rate, that's better, because we all know cost is forever gone. Rate is just temporary, right? But if you really need that lower rate and lower payment to qualify, as you've seen, now is the time to negotiate creative ideas with the seller, such as a permanent buy down of the rate, to where they provide a credit that drives that interest rate down, in some cases a full 1% or more, which then makes it much more comfortable with payment. Also moves some people into the ability to qualify for that. There's creative products called a 2-1 temporary buy down, to where either either seller paid or lender paid, to where they basically fund the ability to have a rate that is 2% below its actual rate for the first year, 1% for the next year, and then it moves up. But all of that is a moot point, because if rates do fall next year, whatever is invested into that buy down can be then factored into a refi next year. So there's all these creative things. There's ARMs. You talked about adjustable rate mortgages, which in some cases can be a lower rate. You're still fixed on those ARMs for 5 years, 7 years. But again, if rates fall next year, that's plenty of time to be able to get into it, see rates drop, refinance in, say, 6 months to 12 months. So lots of different creative options to be able to bridge this gap, to act now and then improve on that pricing and that rate when rates fall next year.
Well, let's talk about some of the things that people are waiting for. If you wait for next year, out of 7 economists, I subscribe to an economist newsletter. Out of 7, there's a consensus of 6 of them that we're going to have increased appreciation next year. And it's going to be somewhere in the 3 to 6% range. Not the 24% that we saw in 2021. That's not sustainable, but it's a good average. Only one of the 7 economists was projecting a 3% decline. But none of that is the gloom and doom that you've been hearing on the media that you alluded to in the beginning of our conversation. But let's say that appreciation continues. And behind me, we've got the zip code 93921 in the market snapshot. There's only 3 weeks supply of inventory. And prices are holding pretty well at 97% of list price. Now, that's the list price that it actually sold for. But I'm doing a series of these analysis throughout the Monterey Peninsula. Now, some areas like Highway 68, 93908 has 6.25 months worth of inventory. So you're starting to see some of the areas that you might be able to get some of these negotiations that are really flexible, and a seller will be listening to, because their market times are longer. But the point is it's not like a year from now it's going to be 2009 and everything is collapsed, because people have a lot of equity this time around. And 2006 and through 2008, you had plenty of people with zero equity or negative equity. Now people have 60-70% equity, and that's a very different complexion. So you don't have the distress in the market. So I love what you're saying to our listeners, that there is hope in the market. So there is reason to look at finding the perfect home, date that rate with Chad Hawker at Synergy One Lending, and make sure that you take advantage of what we have in the market. Because if you look at this as being, well, sit back and wait, all of a sudden now you've priced yourself out of the market. And what if you get caught up in the recession and you have lower wages or less hours or whatever? Now you qualify based upon what your track record's been. It's probably been pretty good up until now. So there's a lot of good reasons to look at what's going on. And I have a feeling that we're going to be able to come up with a plan of action that will work for the purchase. And then Chad, if they want to come to you and get more information about your loan products, how do they get hold of you?
I would be delighted to help. Well, I don't know if you can post on this. My phone number is 831-521-9378. Call me anytime. Google my name, Chad Hawker, loan officer.
Well, if they Google your
But
name, Chad Hawker, they'll get the Ironman champion
that's
professional
true.
athlete.
That's my prior life. But yeah. But seriously, give me a call and send me an email at chawker@s1l. I'd be delighted to help. And just to piggyback on what you said, I think that you use the word hope in the market. I think it, for me personally, with my understanding of all these moving parts, it's excitement in the market. I think if you can kind of, so many people are turned towards this fear approach of all the media and all this, the scare tactic that is supporting this poor real estate market and what's to come, and literally turn and look forward and understand this data. You're going to see opportunity. You're going to see that not as it opportunity, like it's time sensitive opportunity. I think the saying goes, luck is when preparation meets opportunity, right? We're preparing you, and then the opportunity is now. Because if you believe the data, we've got a good 2-3 months as a buyer to get involved, and then it's going to be more difficult come Q1, Q2 of next year. So I appreciate you being on.
All right. Well, let's talk about one thing too, preparation. So if somebody wants to get pre-approved, you get all their data, everything, and all they have to do is find the house and get the contract and the appraisal. You can do that, and they then become much more powerful as a finance buyer than if they just go in and say, well, okay, I'll get my pre-qual later because I haven't been to a loan officer yet. Is that something that you encourage?
Oh, it's foundational, so a couple of things on pre-approval. I always like to approach the idea or the understanding of a pre-approval as really just an educational experience to create a plan, right? It's not really just about telling you what you qualify for. It's giving you all the understanding and the knowledge to know what goes into getting pre-approved and match what is possible with what your goals and your needs are. And it's never been easier to get pre-approval thanks to technology. We have a system and a technology that guides people to get pre-approved very, very quickly. And it just starts with me sending them an invitation to an app or sending them an email. And I've gotten people pre-approved in less than 30 minutes. So strongly encourage it. Don't approach it as, I'm just not ready yet. I've had a lot of clients, as I'm sure you have too, William, where the hesitation and the unknown creates this belief that they're not ready. And then the moment they go through the process, I can't tell you how many times those clients are writing an offer a week later and in a home a month or two later, because it's like any goal, when you can take the concept of a goal and then see that goal and what it takes to move yourself towards that goal, it becomes a reality. So I encourage everybody, anybody who has not gone through the pre-approval process or who has but hasn't done it recently, to give me a call. And I would be delighted, my team would be delighted to help.
You have a fabulous team, and that's Chad Hawker at Synergy One Lending. You are the Carmel manager, and you're downtown Carmel, easy to find. So that's a wrap. And Chad, I'd love to have you come back so that we can continue this conversation, especially in Q1, so we can see all the developments that you've been talking to us about. So I'm
Do
William
that.
Smith with the William Smith Luxury Group. Thank you, Chad, for
Thank you,
being here.
William.
And we'll look forward to the next conversation with Chad Hawker at Synergy One Lending. Thank you very much.
Thank you.